Dear students, thank you for all your responses. So now we would continue with the series as we have discussed about ancient India, and the previous lecture was about Indus Valley civilization, like how did the Harappans, live, what was their political setup, their economic condition, the social status, the religious activities, what they've been involved into. So today I would like to start a series with medieval Indian history, which generally is considered to be one of the toughest. Per se, it's also seen as one of the driest topics ever. But when you look at the pattern of UPSC, alternatively, UPSC makes questions on medieval India. So I would like to start with medieval India. So if you look at the bracket of medieval India, so medieval India begins with, if you look at the bracket, it begins with 647 AD and medieval India gets over by 1707 AD. So 647 AD, it is the age of the Rajputs. So the Rajputs entered India and they began to rule India. 1707 would be the death of Aurangzeb, the mighty Mughal ruler. So if I take the numbers, Rajputs would be the first topic in medieval India, North India, particularly followed by Delhi Sultanate, and the third topic would be the Mughals. So let's take the Mughals as third. So we have Rajputs, in between we have Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals. South India, when you try to understand medieval, we have the mighty Cholas, the imperial Cholas, we have the Rashtrakutas, we have the Vijayanagar Empire, we have the Bamini Kingdom, and then we touch on with modern India. But history of medieval India gets over with 1707. So to begin with, we are talking about the first chapter, the age of the Rajputs. The age of the Rajputs. So what is the bracket of the Rajputs? When you look at the Rajputs, Rajputs emerged powerful in 647 AD. And by 1206, the Rajput kingdoms came to an end. By 1206, we have the emergence of Delhi Sultanate with the beginning of the slave dynasty. So to begin with, who were the Rajputs? If we look at the origin of the Rajputs, there are multiple theories regarding the origin of the Rajputs. Let's take the first origin. It is said we have the Agnikula theory. The second one we have the Surya Vanshi theory. The third one we have the Chandra Vanshi theory. And the last one, Vansi. And the last one, we have, they were the feudal lords of Harsha. Because Harsha was the greatest ruler of North India, who ruled from 606 to 647 AD. Years are very, very important in history. So the day Harsha died, Harsha had 36 feudal lords. And they were collectively called as Rajputras. So these Rajputras, in short, were called as Rajputs. This is the most accepted theory. But when you look into the history of Rajasthan, they speak about the origin of Rajputs in a very different way, telling that the Agnikula theory was something very powerful, where 4 clans emerged from that Agnikund. Lord Indra created an Agnikund on the crater of Mount Abu, and 4 ruling class emerged. Then we have the followers of Lord Surya. So they emerged, the descendants of Lord Surya. So we claim them to be coming from the Surya Vanshi theory. The same goes with the Chandra Vanshi theory. So these are the origin of Rajputs, but the historically accepted view was the feudal lords of Harsha. To have a small background, Harsha died in 647 AD. When Harsha died, Harsha did not have a legal heir. Harsha had a natural death. So when we see the anglicized version of Indian history, Britishers have decided the death of Harsha to be the end of ancient and the beginning of Rajputs to be the part of medieval. So this part in 647 AD, there were 36 clans in North India. So North India was divided with 36 clans. So ignore South India for time being. So we have 36 clans in North India. So North India was very much into that clumsiness. So these 36 kingdoms, or we call this 36 clans, collectively we call them as the Rajputs. So politically, when you look at the Rajputs, politically, if you look at the Rajputs, politically, number one, they had a centralized polity. Then existence of feudalism was there. Since feudalism existed, the polity became decentralized. Because ancient India, throughout, we have centralized polity. The moment feudalism was introduced by the Satavahanas, feudalism became a very common norm. And Harsha's polity was a confederate monarchy. Since Rajputs were feudal lords of Harsha, and wherever feudalism comes, you can close your eyes and write, the polity would be decentralized. So the Rajput polity was never ever centralized. It was decentralized because the backbone of Rajput polity was feudalism. And to keep a clue in mind, Rajputs themselves were feudal lords of Harsha. So when Harsha had 36 feudal lords, the polity was decentralized. So all these kingdoms were fighting with each other. They were fighting with each other. So they had mutual jealousy with each other. Let's take a kingdom called Pratiharas. Let's take a kingdom called the Chauhans, the Solankis, the Paramaras. They had a constant fight with each other, which created mutual jealousy, mutual mistrust among the Rajputs. So politically, they were decentralized, they were into feudalism. Economically, when you look at the Rajputs, they were self-sufficient, they were very rich. We call Rajputs as one of the wealthiest stock of North India. What was not there in a Rajput palace, or what did the Rajputs not have? They were like very much into their wealth. So economically, they were self-sufficient. And when you look at socially, we have lots of rigid elements there. The exact Guptan elements entered the Rajputs, and it was highly a rigid society. Plenty of evils. Let's take patriarchy was on its heights. Varna, Jati, Gotra was very rigid. The concept of marriage, child marriage was seen there. The rate of Sati was high. And a new concept called Jauhar or Jauhar, which is a mass suicide, which was also practiced. The Hindu Parda system called Gungat was there. Untouchability was there in heights. Slavery existed. Prostitution was there. So when you look at the Rajput society, it was very much into that rigidity. And when you look at religiously, Rajputs were secular. See, it is during this period, 647 to 1206, we have the entry of Islam. Islam entered India in 712 AD with the Arab conquest of Sindh. So those did take place during this bracket only. So when Islam entered India, Rajputs did not oppose it. Islam had, when Muhammad bin Qasim occupied Sindh, and when Sindh became the first province to taste Islam, the Muslims who were settling there in Sindh were welcomed by the Rajputs only. So on that aspect, we conclude the Rajputs to be secular. So politically, they were decentralized. Economically, they were self-sufficient. Socially, they were rigid. And religiously, they were secular. So when you keep this in mind, what were the ruling dynasties? The important ruling class. The important ruling class, or you can call it as the important ruling kingdoms. So what were the important ruling kingdoms here? The first one, we talked them as Pratiharas of Kanauj. So we have the Pratiharas of Kanauj. The second one, we have the Gaghadawalas of Kanauj. The Gaghadawalas of Kanauj. The third one, we have the Paramaras of Malwa. The Paramaras of Malwa. The fourth one, we have the Chandelas of Bundelkhand. The fifth one, we have the Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer. Prithviraj Chauhan comes here. The Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer. So the sixth one, we have the Solankis of Anhilwara. Solankis of Anhilwara. The seventh one, we have the Tomars of Delhi. Tomars of Delhi. The eighth one, we have the Palas of Bengal. The ninth one, we have the Senas of Bengal. The 10th one. The 10th one, the Kalachuris of Chedi. You have to memorize them all. Let me tell you how to go about with it. So the 11th one, the Hindu Shahis of Sindh. The Hindu Shahis of Sindh. And the 12th one, the Gangas of Orissa. So among the 36 clans, you need to just remember only these 12 clans which are very prominent. When you look at the PYQs, UPSC do ask a name of a kingdom and a particular, the capital and where they were located and which period did they emerge. We did have a PYQ here. So generally make sure you don't skip any topic in history. History, you memorize it once. For life, the topics will be there with you. Getting it, so let's get into it. When Harsha died, the Pratiharas emerged powerful and they were occupying Kanauj. When you look at Kanauj in UP, the Kanya Kubja, and Harsha's capital was Kanauj. So this Pratiharas had a very strong hold over Kanauj. And when you look at India, who were the other rulers here? When you look at here, North India had the Rajputs. Getting it, I told you the Rajputs. South India had the Rashtrakutas. This side you have the Eastern Chalukyas of Vengi. Here you have the Chera. Here you have the Cholas. And here you have the Pandyas. When you look at the contemporary, they were all there. Now let's take a Rajput kingdom called Pala. Let's take a Rajput kingdom called Pratihara. Now what happened during this time was, since Kanauj was a great center of trade, Kanauj was the west bank of Kanauj, you have Ganga. And Kanauj is considered to be the fragrance city of India, the perfume city of India. Harsha developed Kanauj. When Huanswang entered India, he writes great details about how Kanauj was. So in this time, North India means it was Kanauj. So there was a tripartite struggle for Kanauj. There was a tripartite struggle for Kanauj. And who were the three parties who fought for Kanauj? It was the Pratihara, the Rashtrakuta and the Pala. So I'm just making a triangle because three parties are making a what? They're fighting for Kanauj. So that is what we see, the Pratiharas of Kanauj. So Pratiharas, and we have whom? The Palas as well. So Palas of Bengal, they were ruling that Bihar region. Palas were into that Bihar region. Getting it, so Kanauj, UP, Bihar, they both had a constant fight, and a South Indian kingdom called Rashtrakutas with their capital at Manyaketa in Maharashtra. So they were constantly fighting. But when you look at it, Palas at one point of time occupied Kanauj. Pratiharas at one point of time, they held Kanauj. There's a popular king called Dhruva of Rashtrakuta, Indra. They all occupied Kanauj, but the final victory was with Pratiharas. After the fall of Pratiharas, we have the next kingdom coming called the Gaghadawalas of Kanauj. And in this Gaghadawala kingdom, we have a very popular ruler called Jayachand. Jayachand or Jayachandra, his daughter was Samyukta, whom fell in love with Prithviraj Chauhan. And there's one episode. There's a folklore called Prithviraj Raso written by Chand Bardai. There we get about the episode of how this story and all that stuff happened. So he was a very strong ruler, and this Jayachand was killed by Muhammad Ghori. In 1194, in the Battle of Chandavar, Ghori killed Jayachand and occupied Kanauj. Because this is the period where we have Ghazni coming to India. Ghazni entered India in 1000 BC, 1000 AD. And this is the period. In 1175, we have the entry of Ghori. So Ghazni and Ghori, when they came to India to rule, Ghori came to India to occupy India. When he entered, he had a battle with Jayachand and he killed him. The next important with that Malwa Plateau, Gujarat, that Rajasthan and parts of MP and Maharashtra, we have a very powerful kingdom called Paramaras. And this Paramaras, the capital was Dara. So Dara in Madhya Pradesh. Learn the name, learn the area, learn the capital. Then we have Chandelas of Bundelkhand. They were in Madhya Pradesh. So they were the one who to build the Khajuraho temple, the Kandariya Mahadev temple, a very powerful kingdom in that Orcha region of Madhya Pradesh. Then comes Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer. So our Delhi was initially under the group called the Tomars. Tomars were the beginners, to start the rule of Delhi in medieval India. Anandpal Tomar, Anandnag Tomar. Getting it? So he was the one who actually, expanded and developed Delhi. And Delhi at that point of time was called Dilli. So after the fall of Tomars, it was the Chauhans who took Delhi and they had Ajmer. And the greatest Chauhan ruler here was Prithviraj Chauhan. So Prithviraj Chauhan was the greatest Chauhan ruler, and it was he who fell in love with Jayachand's daughter Samyukta. And this Prithviraj Chauhan fought two battles. The first battle of Tarain in 1191 with Ghori, where Ghori was literally chased and defeated. To take a revenge in 1192, Ghori came along with his commander-in-chief called Kutubuddin Aibak, and they both met at the historic battlefield of Tarain, and there was a plan which was made. Prithviraj Chauhan was killed by Ghori. And finally, in 1192, Delhi and Ajmer was annexed by the Turks. So then that's the next part. We have to see how the Rajputs fell. Then we have in Gujarat, this Anhilwara in Gujarat. So Gujarat was a very prosperous town. We know that because of its ports and all of them. So here we have the Solankis, very powerful. Plenty of rulers like Mulraj, Bhima, plenty of rulers were there. And this Gujarat is important because there was one queen called Rani Udayamati. So this Rani Udayamati of Solanki kingdom, she constructed a step well for her dead husband called Rani Ki Vav. Today, Rani Ki Vav is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and you can see at the back of our 100 rupees note, you can see Rani Ki Vav printed. So that Rani Ki Vav was made by the Solanki ruler, Udayamati, and she was a widow, so which means she did not perform Jauhar. Sorry, she did not perform Sati. So she took that aesthetic widowhood and she constructed that stepwell. And it was the Solankis who had the great Somnath temple. Ghazni came, attacked the Somnath temple and made it to fall to the ground. The next one, Tomars, we've already discussed. And there were two powerful kingdoms in the regions of Magadha, that is Bengal. One was the Palas. Palas were patrons of Buddhism. See, Rajputs were all Hindus, Rajputs were all Kshatriyas. Some claim themselves to be Brahmana Kshatriya. Except the Palas, all were Hindus because Palas followed Vajrayana Buddhism. And here there was one important ruler called Dharmapala. Dharmapala participated in the tripartite struggle, and he even went one step ahead to marry the Rashtrakutan princess so that, they can have a strong alliance and they can punch the Pratihara. But all ended in vain. Dharmapala was a great person who wanted Buddhism to be elaborated and spent. So wherever you turn around that Bodh Gaya, that region, Nalanda University was with them. Vikramashila was constructed by Dharmapala. Odantipuri universities were constructed. So three great universities were there with Palas, and it was all great centers of Buddhist learning. Then comes the Senas. Senas, where we have a powerful ruler called Lakshmana Sena. So they had their capital at Nadia in West Bengal. Then in northern Orissa and parts of Madhya Pradesh, the kingdom was Kalachuris of Chedi. So Chedi kingdom, we took it as northern Orissa and parts of Madhya Pradesh. Then comes the next kingdom, Hindu Shagis of Sindh. So in the regions of Pakistan. So they were ruling a very great ruler called Jaipal. Yet Ghazni blinded Jaipal. His son Anandapal. Ghazni did fight a battle with Anandapal. Anandapal's son Trilochanapal, who was defeated. Because Ghazni, whenever he entered India, his entry was via the Hindu Shagis of the Sindh. The Khyber and the Bolan Pass was with them only. So the entry to India, you have to touch the Hindu Shagis. Then comes the Gangas of Orissa, southern Orissa. That is, we take that Kalinga, Ganjam and Puri districts of Orissa was with them. The famous Jagannath Puri temple, the famous Lingaraj temple at Bhuvaneshwar were all constructed by the Gangas of Orissa. So these were the 12 major ruling kingdoms of North India. So how were they collectively, politically decentralized, economically very strong, socially rigid, religiously secular? And look at it, they ruled from 1206. They ruled from 647 to 1206. Approximately, when you take 550 years, they ruled. And multiple rulers kept on coming and changing. What are we going to focus on UPSC is the name of the kingdom, the capital of the kingdom, the important rulers, how was their polity, economy, society, religion. Hope the Rajputs was useful. Make sure you just now, after listening to this classes, make sure you take up the PYQ and start writing an answer. UPSC asks, UPSC does not ask is not our problem. Since it is there in our syllabus and medieval begins with the age of Rajputs. So you have to study them all. So I wish you all the very best. Thank you.